Hello, Garland Nixon here, and we're hanging out with Dr. Jim Kavanaugh. And Trump says he's the deal maker. I don't think we got any deals. I don't think we got any deals coming. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here. We're hanging out with Dr. Jim Kavanaugh. Don't forget, if you want to follow Dr. Jim Kavanaugh and all of his good works, go to The Polemicist. That's Jim Kavanaugh with no U. It's N-A-G-H. It is not N-A-U-G-H. Kavanaugh. Go to his Substack and you'll find all of his stuff. And of course, when we do these shows, he puts that stuff up. He put links to it. Also follow Dr. Kavanaugh on X. And he's always on top of the latest stories. All right, so 2025 goes by. Here's what's interesting, Jim. Let's start here. Trump came on, with this, the aura of he's the businessman. He's a real estate wheeler and dealer. He's The Art of the Deal is his book. He's making deals, which, okay, I don't know, maybe in buying and selling real estate, that stuff. Okay, you know what to do with that. When it comes to geopolitics and you're involved presiding over an empire that doesn't make deals, it imposes deals. Mm-hmm. Since 91, the U.S. imposes deals. And now in 2026, Jim, we can't impose deals anymore, so there ain't any deals to be had. What are your thoughts about that whole concept of Trump wanting deals, but the dynamics are so different now that you just can't say, here's the deal, you do what the hell I tell you or else? Jim.
Yeah, that's a good point. Look, I think Trump is very much this transactional character. He thinks he can come in and make the deal. He's got enough power in the situation, as he did in New York real estate, to craft something that will be beneficial to him and that also will be beneficial to other people. It'll be a good enough deal that everybody will accept it. And he's a smart enough, tough enough, engaged enough guy, known to the club of people he deals with, that he'll be able to get away with it. Okay. And he's convinced of that 100% that he's the guy who can make the deal. This isn't that kind of situation. Ukraine isn't that kind of situation. Venezuela isn't that kind of situation. Iran, the Middle East is not that kind of situation. You are dealing with political actors, social, political, geopolitical actors who have existential consequences here, existential investments in what they're doing. They're not counting. This isn't a monetary thing. This isn't a financial thing. They're not looking at the bottom line, adding up with the pluses and minuses and what there are certain things they need absolutely from this. The Russians in Ukraine absolutely need to regain those territories, and they absolutely need a neutral Ukraine. And they're not going to, there's no amount of money that's going to buy them off from that. There's no amount of charm or bullying or whatever from Donald Trump personally that's going to persuade them it's okay to do with a little bit less than that. The Palestinians and the Israelis are not, giving up the Zionist project for the Israelis or the Palestinian National Project because they got a few more bucks or because there's an exchange here that's going to, satisfy them in some respect. Venezuela isn't giving up its sovereignty, so these are things and in all of these situations, he doesn't believe it. So he has got himself in all of those three situations, in conflicts and in tension, where they're at the edge of direct war over Iran. They've been at war over Ukraine, although he wants to think that he wasn't part of it in some way. The United States has been directly involved in that, whether he likes to acknowledge it or not. And Venezuela, and a decision is going to have to be made in the coming year on all of those three theaters as to whether or not the United States is going to escalate. The confrontation has to be had, and the question has to be called. Are you going to overthrow the government of Venezuela? Are you going to attack Iran again? Or are you going to allow the Israelis to, of course you will allow the Israelis to take over Gaza. It already happened to that, but you're going to attack Iran or attack anybody who tries to prevent that. Are you going to allow the Russians to win the war in Ukraine, defeating NATO and the United States? Are you going to take the L, or are you going to attack? In all of those three situations. And the answer could be different in each of them, but he doesn't really want to make up his mind about that. So he's got the people behind him who are pushing him. Rubio and company are pushing him about Venezuela. The Zionists are pushing him about Iran. The neocons are pushing him about Ukraine. So at some point, he's going to have to make a decision. And I don't know what it's going to be. As I say, I am not sanguine about the idea that the president of the United States, whoever he is, Donald Trump, whether he wants to or not, whether he feels like himself, I'd rather stay out of this or not stay out. I'm not so convinced that he's going to say, I'll take the L. I will lose. I'll take the loss in Venezuela. I'll take the loss in Ukraine. The loss of NATO. I'll take the loss. He's going to be put in a position in each of these situations where people are going to come to him. They are coming to him. The Europeans and the neocons. They're saying, if you let you lose Ukraine on behalf of NATO and on behalf of the West that you've been fighting, it's going to be a loss. And we're going to and the Democrats will come to him and say, we're going to blame you like you blame Biden for Afghanistan. As stupid as both of those were, but Biden didn't lose Afghanistan. And Trump started the war with Ukraine. He started arming Ukraine during his first administration offensively. And they're going to say that to him about Venezuela. And of course, the entire American political class is going to say, you can't allow the Israelis to lose anything in the Middle East. So he's going to be put in a position of being pressured to make sure Israel doesn't lose, Ukraine, the West, NATO, the United States doesn't lose in Ukraine, and that the Americans don't lose in Venezuela. And I don't know what he's going to do. And he could do anything, and it's going to depend a lot on who's pressuring him, a lot on what other kinds of political pressures there are. So I think we're heading into a year in which he's going to have to confront the fact that he can't deal his way out of this. He's going to have to fight his way out of it or surrender. And that's a difficult situation.
Well, here's the other part too, and this is a reality, whether they were paying attention to the Red Sea and the Houthis or not, the technological military horizon has changed. And so I was looking at the other day. Now, Venezuela has some things that could really hurt the U.S. Venezuela, I was watching this thing where they're like certain drones and things that they have. The Iranians apparently have been giving them stuff. Who knows what the Iranians have been giving them? But the likelihood is it's some missiles. They may have missiles that can hit American bases in Puerto Rico and in the Caribbean. You know what I mean? So even to take a swipe at the Venezuelans after what happened with the Houthis, you might be fighting off way more. And the Houthis didn't have Su-30s with anti-ship missiles, right? So that's the other part. The one part of it is, okay, well, Trump just take the L. The other two is this. Is there even an option? Because of the military technology that's changed, because of what may or may have not been shared, the bottom line is this: about the best the U.S. can do in Ukraine is go to nuclear war. What are we going to do? Can we put boots on the ground? We can't. Number one, we ain't got that many boots. Number two, if you start sending a bunch of boots into Ukraine and the Russians are like, okay, that's it. They're going to flatten every base, every port, everything. You're not going to be able to go in there. Rushnix, you're going to have no bases. All your bases will disappear in an hour, right? Mm-hmm. So to engage there is to basically say, okay, the only thing we're going to do is we'll engage China in its region. With technology now, you cannot engage a superpower on that superpower's border, or they're going to flatten you with surface-to-surface missiles. Even us, any superpower, if you go to their border, firing surface-to-surface missiles or air-to-surface missiles from their border, they're going to blow you to smithereens. So that's not an option. Iran, it ain't a good idea to go against Iran. I think the Israelis learned in 12 days that you have real problems. As I said, the other part of it is this. Or will they take the L? What options does he have? You know what I mean? And
I know.
The military options ain't what they used to be. And let me add one other thing. And economically, I was listening to somebody, was it the guy that worked for Colin Powell?
Larry Wilkinson.
The other day saying within the first couple weeks of January, like this $3 trillion that we owe for something is coming due, and that the U.S. is probably going to have to go to China and do something or deal with them and all of that. So we're on the potential of economic disaster. Who God only knows. I think the likelihood in 2026 is some kind of an economic crash. You got to add that in.
Yeah. But that's another reason why they might go for a military escalation, because that's a diversion from the economic problem, and and it creates economic possibilities. Look, it is true that Russia has benefited economically from wartime production. Wartime production in a capitalist economy is a kind of simulacrum of socialism. But yeah, that is the problem. You're absolutely right. What can the only thing the United States can do in Ukraine is tactical nuclear weapons. I don't think they want to do that. I think the Europeans want to do it. And I don't know what else they can do. But the other thing that's a decision they're going to have to make. Otherwise, they'll take the loss, and it'll be a loss, and they'll be blamed for it. And the Democrats will be right out in front. What?
It's obvious. Odessa's going. You look at what's happening now. The Russians are going to take Odessa. They're flattening it. It's obvious now they're taking Odessa.
Oh yeah, they're going to go. I think to Odessa. Yeah, I think they're going after that, and he should try but of course, again, Ukraine. Zelensky is not going to make a deal. If Zelensky were smart enough, he would have made a deal right now and try and stop him taking Odessa. Maybe too late, but so there's going to be a problem. I'm just saying, it's the potential for it's dangerous because of the fact that the alternative is a loss. In Venezuela, they have options. They have this option of blockade, and the other side of the coin. It's true for the other side too. Venezuela has to figure out how to win. They can't. They're going to lose or they're going to win. Okay, they'll lose they can lose by being ground down with the blockade, and they're not just after Venezuela; they're definitely after Cuba. This is Rubio; he's after Cuba, and they may attack Cuba first. They may. The people behind this are going to say to Donald Trump, the Russians aren't going to go to war over Cuba. They're not going to go to war over Venezuela. The Chinese are, and they're probably right about that. I don't know. What are you going to do? So there's going to be pressure. He's put himself in the position. He created the problem for himself in Venezuela. He's got 20% of the American Navy there. They either back off or they regime change. So how are you going to, it's not an easy thing. I don't know what I think the Venezuelan armed forces have the potential. The Argentina sank a British ship in the Falklands. They might have a weapon that can sink an American ship or take out an American. But I think, again, someone from the other side has to call the question. I think ships have to go through the blockade. Chinese and Russian ships have to go through that blockade and saying, you are not going to stop us. And we have stingers on our tankers. And if a helicopter approaches us to take us over, we're going to take down that helicopter. And if you want to have a fight, then we're going to fight with us. Okay. But if the Chinese and the Russians back off and say, well, we'll leave it alone for there because let the Americans deal with that because that's way over there. It's not our problem. Then that's the situation too. So you have all these things. And in the case of the Middle East and in Iran and Israel, it's just Israel wants this war with Iran. It's the stupidest thing they could do without having a war with Iran. And Iran has to decide what it's going to do. Are they going to decide to allow Israel to take over Gaza, take over Syria, take over Lebanon? That's what the Israelis are doing. They are succeeding in that. Someone's going to stop them. We're not going to stop them. But, everybody, not just Trump, everybody has to decide how these conflicts are going to be resolved in whose favor. And, with the Chinese, and look at China in there are two things that the Americans want out of Venezuela. They want Cuba and Venezuela. They want to stop they put an end to any thought of socialist, pink socialism, social democracy of any kind in Latin America, and get rid of Cuba. And they want to tell the Chinese, you stay out of here, and tell the Latin American countries, we don't want you doing business with China. China wants to was building a railroad across Latin America from Atlantic to Pacific. They're investing in Venezuelan oil production. That's the problem with the United States, hobbled the Venezuelan oil economy by not allowing the machinery and the production facilities, so China's coming in and helping them rebuild keep their oil economy going, oil production going, and the United States wants to stop that, and they want to force Latin American countries to stay away from China and to keep Chinese investment out of Latin America, and force Latin America, with triple down Monroe Doctrine to be dependent on the United States again. So is China going to let that happen? Or are they going to send ships through the blockade and say, we're sending this ship deliberately through this blockade and daring you to stop us? And that's somebody has to do something like that. So I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just saying there's a kind of false calm at the moment. But you see the tensions in each of these situations are on knife's edge. The tension is there, and it's ready to break out in one way or another. And we're going to see. I think Netanyahu's going to come and persuade Trump, not just Netanyahu, but everybody in the American political class, Democrat and Republican, are going to be lining up with Netanyahu to persuade Trump to help him attack Iran. And that's going to be a disaster. It'll be a disaster for Israel, I hope. And if they do that, Iran has to make a decision. We have to destroy Israel. We're not going to hold back. We're not going to try and do this to avoid that. You got to be willing to take the nuclear hit, which you're going to get, and destroy Israel. You have all those weapons. You say you have all those missiles. You showed that you have good missiles. They are afraid of you. You got to use them. Everything. Hezbollah, anybody who has the weapons has to go after Israel, drive it out of Lebanon, drive it out of Syria, and destroy it if it can, because that's the only way you're going to do. If you try and hold back, Venezuela, Israel, Venezuela, Iran, they try and hold back and say, well, we're going to try to avoid the conflict. They're not going to avoid the conflict. They're not. Venezuela's not avoiding the conflict. So somebody's got to call the question in all of and this question is going to be called by one side or another.
I don't think, and I understand one side of the coin is if those war starts, I don't think Trump attacks. Excuse me. I don't think the U.S. goes to war with Iran. I don't think so. Now, if we do that, if that happens, then I would agree with you what the potential is and what needs to happen. Yeah. But the other part of it is this. If the U.S. gets involved in a war with Iran, the U.S. and Israel, all games are off, bets are off at that point, because the Middle East is going to blow up in a ball of fire, and at that point, the cost of, they're going to close the Persian Gulf. Mm-hmm. And at that point, you detonate the speculations and derivatives market detonates. Yep. If you remember, the U.S. was like, yes, we're threatening Iran. And Iran was like, we're making preparations to shut down the Persian Gulf. The U.S. was like, perhaps maybe we can make a deal. Well, we'll throw a couple missiles and you guys throw a couple missiles at Qatar. Yeah. We'll all go. That's the thing about it is we are in a precarious situation to be charitable when it comes to economics anyway. To do that, they will detonate the derivatives market. At that point, obliterate, goodbye, Western economy. See you later, Trump. See you later, anything you thought about doing, anything you dreamed about doing economically. You thought you had a presidency, and you walk away making Herbert Hoover look like he was FDR and Putin combined. Yeah. So I don't think they do it mainly for that reason, right? But I could be wrong, but I don't think they do it because at that point, that's it. You detonate the Western economy, and guess what? You damn sure believe that Iran will do it. They've got to. That's the. But anyway, they were prepping to before, and they know that is their nuclear weapon. And they've said, "Yeah, you guys, sure, you got nukes and this and that, but if you push us too far, We'll close the Persian Gulf, and we'll smash everything that looks like an oil rig from Saudi Arabia to Kuwait. Is that what you guys want? So that's the other part. There's something that makes a lot of the money guys go, man, I got a lot of money in the market, and it's all gone. Venezuela, I don't think Trump does it. At the very beginning, there was all of these people, they're going to attack. And my position was, I don't believe it. I believe it's possible. I don't believe Trump pulls the trigger on that, because if he does again, his goose is cooked. 30% of Americans,
I know.
And the first dead body that comes home, it drops to 15%. But what if it's a missile that hits the ship and it's 300 dead bodies? It drops to 3%. And that's the end of you, Donald Trump. Go, you might as well pack your bags and head for Mar-a-Lago and hide, because you're finished. And MAGA that states now. So there are reasons to say yes. I'll say this too let me say this about Ukraine, and this is something I want to that I think needs to be discussed. I truly believe this. If it was up to Donald Trump, he'd say to Ukraine, he hates Zelensky, he despises all the European leaders, he hates them on a personal level, and that's more important to Trump than politics. If it was up to Trump, he'd walk away from Ukraine, mainly because he hates Zelensky. But forget all of the things that we think about. He's like, I hate that bastard. He tried to get me. You know, Trump, that's the most important thing to him.
Yeah.
But the other part of it is this, and that's what you always comes back to. Okay, when you're running the Trump Incorporated, your name's on that. And you can say, sign this or don't sign that. And now Trump has to navigate the neocon, Wall Street, technology, all that. And he's not some real smart and devious guy that knows how to navigate that stuff in Washington. You know what I mean? Nope. That's the other part of it too.
Yeah, that's my point. He doesn't have political strategic depth in Washington. He doesn't have political principle of his own. He thinks he can deal his way through this. He thinks he can bluff and bluster and bully his way through this, or charm even his way through this. This is what he thinks he is and what he thinks he can do. And as president of the United States, there's a severe limit to that, and he's running up against those limits here. So does Trump, if it's up to Trump, on one hand, it is up to Trump. Trump could have said in January, February, after the first meeting with Zelensky, he could have said, oh, this was Joe Biden's problem. He created, which isn't true, but he could have tried to get away. He could have gotten away with it, and I'm out of here. But he didn't.
Do you think he could have? Do you really think he could have?
Well, which is my point. Trump doesn't know what they're doing in Ukraine. The military is still supporting Ukraine. You know, it's like when he was leaving Syria, he said, let's leave. How many troops do I have in Syria? He said, 900. No, they had like 2,000, 2,500. They lied to him. So they're still supporting Ukraine. The American military is still supporting Ukraine. And he's not understanding the level at which the American imperial project is at work behind the scenes in ways that he doesn't control unless he were really a strong president and really a strong political figure who said, I understand what's going on behind the scenes, and I'm really going to take control of it and put a stop to it. He's not that guy. Okay. So, you know, he's not John Kennedy saying, I'm going to break up the CIA. And, you know, if John Kennedy was really going to do that, but what I'm saying is Donald Trump is a weaker guy. Donald Trump comes in, all I have to do is be me, and I can talk my way through this and bluster my way through and charm my way through this. And he's running. This is my point. He is running up against the limits of that. And I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know, because is he in control of it? Is he not there's a level at which he is, if he wants to be, if he's strong enough, but he's not. We know he's not. We know Rubio and Stephen Miller and Russell Vought, they're running the show, and he doesn't want to be a loser. And this is a big thing. And they're going to say that, and he knows the Democrats are going to blame him for losing Ukraine, just like he blamed Biden for losing Afghanistan, and he can't escape it. There's no deal he can make to escape that. If Russia ends up occupying the four oblasts, Crimea,
which they will,
yeah, and the government of Ukraine, but Russia has a problem there. They have to regime change Ukraine. They got a regime change.
No, they looks like they're good. I think the Russians. It appears to me the Russians have made up their mind, and the Russians, you know, I tell you, they're really smart. Here's what it appears to me, and I do want to get to Zionists next, but here's what it appears to me. The Russians got it made in a way. It's like their best allies are the Europeans for this reason. The Trump people or whatever come up with some plan. God only knows how many points this week's plan has. 27, 20, 19, 23, okay. And the Russians look at it and they think that's a pile of crap. No way in the world. But they know the Europeans will always bail them out. So the Russians do this. Yeah, Trump, that's a pretty good plan. The Americans are working hard. We're working with the Americans. Oh, we'd love to do, this is a plan. And what do they say? We could work from this as a base to go somewhere. The Americans are trying so hard. We're working with, we could get something done. What do you think, Zelensky? No way. Oh, well, we'd probably take it if it wasn't. They got it made because they know Zelensky can never take the plan. So they can butter Trump up. It's a great Trump plan, Trump. We're going to call it the Trump plan.
Yeah, exactly.
And they smile and grin, and then they go home and sniggle, and then they bomb the hell out of Ukraine and take another town called Pulye or whatever the hell, encircle a bunch of Ukrainian soldiers and continue to do what they want. It's like they are the smart guys here. And one last thing. And meanwhile, you get all these well-meaning people. The Russians should blow up Brussels. They should respond by blowing up every ship, and they would respond by attacking. And the Russians are the adults in the room. And the Russians know this means nuclear war, and we don't want to commit suicide. So do we have to take punches? But the Russians can take a punch. Nobody can take a punch like the Russians, and they see long term. So I think the Russians are the consummate chess players in this thing. Anyway, Jim.
Yeah, no, the Russians have been methodical. They have been precise. They've been scrupulous. They're doing this. They have their own plan, their own agenda. They're pursuing it methodically. It takes the time it takes. They want to make sure they do it right. It's been a masterclass in attritional warfare, strategic warfare, not tactical warfare. And there's no shock and awe. There's grinding, relentless advance, and so they know what they're doing. That's absolutely right. But they played the game with Trump. And they're getting tired of it now because look at what Trump has done. Again, Trump's taking a meeting with Zelensky again. Trump puts out his 28-point plan, and Zelensky get together with the Europeans and transforms it into a 20-point plan that the Russians say is completely contradictory to what the Russians and Trump supposedly agreed on. Trump goes to Anchorage with Putin and agrees on a plan and tells Russia, I can get Zelensky to buy this plan, and he can't. Zelensky won't buy it. That. Zelensky and the Europeans, but then they berate him, or they charm him, or they talk to him into just a few little changes, which change it entirely, and then go back to the Russians, and the Russians say this is not like we talked about. Which, again, as you say, it wasn't even what Trump and Putin agreed to. Were talking points. Oh, yeah, Putin says, this is a basis for discussion. I see some things here we can work with. He didn't agree to any particular thing, but it's promoted in the Western press as a Trump-Russia plan, to have a ceasefire in Zaporozhye and Kherson if you just accept the loss of Donbass, which isn't true. The Russians never accepted that. They just said, oh, well, that's something maybe we can talk about. So then Trump gets now, what's he going to say to Zelensky? Again, how many iterations are we going to go through? Zelensky coming to Trump and Trump saying, oh, no, that's no good. And then he'll change it again. And then Zelensky will go back to the Europeans with it. How many iterations of that are you going to go through? Trump has to decide. This is my point. He has to either cut it off or not. And can he cut it off? Will the Pentagon actually cut off Ukraine? Will the neocons cut off Ukraine? This is his problem. And he doesn't really understand it. And I don't know what he's going to do about it. And I nobody does. And the Russians don't. The Russians, I think they're realizing that any hope they put in Trump was silly. And, everybody got fooled that it was possible to get something going with Trump that you really can't get going with Trump. So, but I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know, but it's a dangerous situation. Somebody, the British, the American neocons, they'll put up a false flag that will create an excuse, a potential excuse, a priori excuse for a pretext for nuclear intervention. Let's just use a couple of little tactical nukes, and they'll back off. and we'll get to a frozen conflict, and we'll have a ceasefire. That's not impossible, because I don't know, as you said, I don't know what else they could do. But
yeah, nothing. There's nothing they can really do but commit suicide. The only thing they could do is swallow a suicide
pill. It would be
pill.
suicide, but
yeah, it would be a suicide pill. That's all. You know. And let me tell you, from a guy, you know, I was just in Russia. I was interviewing people. I talked to some people who are really in the know, right? And you know, I was in a forum at St. Petersburg University. I had dinner with people and talked with people and blah blah blah, right? And let me tell you, don't fool yourself. The Russians know exactly what the hell's going on. Don't fool yourself for 1 second. They know exactly what's going on. Now, when you talk to the people who aren't part of like negotiating teams and stuff like that, they're having the conversation that you and I are having. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you know, this is a crock of shit. But the people who are talking to the media and the news, well, you know, this is quite a good, you know, there's 20 points we could talk. It's a basis for this and that.
Yeah.
They know what the hell's going on. And I think what's important to them is they're very practical. For instance, let me give you an example of one of the guys of somebody that I interviewed, someone that I spoke with, and I'm not speaking out of turn. This guy didn't have anything to hide. We did an interview with this guy, and it's on Scott Ritter's channel. As an example, this is what the Russians are. While we're doing all of this bull crap about who might do this or what, and how that, they know what it is. They ain't even worried about that. They're doing what they do on the ground. Right? The Russians know something. This was said. The Russians know the only way to win a war is to win a war. Mm-hmm. All this rhetoric, talk, and crap like that is irrelevant to them, right? So one of the guys that we talked to, his job was in the energy industry, right? So here's what they were doing. Because we asked them, look, they're flying in these drones and they're hitting your refineries and stuff like that. And, you know, how much trouble is it causing? You know, they're reporting that there's gas lines, but we're going around and we see no gas lines. We see no evidence of an energy shortage. The guy said, okay, let me lay it on you like this. This is the guy in the Russian government who does this. This is his thing. Mm-hmm. He said, here's what we're doing. When they fly a drone in and they hit a refinery, he said, you got to understand these things are huge. Yeah. Hundreds and hundreds of acres. You fly a drone in, you hit one spot, you ain't shut down a refinery, right? Mm-hmm. And we have the material, we make the material, we can quickly fix it. They blow something up, they hit a spot, we can repair it. He said, but here's what they're working on. And this is the issue of drones, period. This is the issue of, I didn't realize, but in talking to these people, I found out. The issue of drones, the power of drones is, I can fire a $25,000 drone and you got to use a $2 million missile. But that's all the issue with drones. I didn't realize that. If I fly into your refinery, you can fix the refinery in a week. But it cost me $25,000 for the drone and it cost you $1.5 million to repair. Again, there's the mismatch. The power of drones is that they're cheap. And even if I fly 5 of them and to hit one, I get a major mismatch in what it costs you for repair. And he said, what I'm doing, what we're working on is how close can we bring that? We've got to lessen the cost of repair so that now you fix it. We have all the parts, we got the people, we got everything we need so we can fix it cheaper. And then you look all across the sphere of dronery, things that you do with a drone that are cheap. How do we bring the fix for it, the repair for it, to shoot it down closer to the price where now what it costs to fire the drone ain't that much different than what it costs to shoot it down or repair it. That's the kind of stuff that these conversations that we're having is a joke in Moscow. That's an American conversation for people that think the Russians don't know what the hell they're going on. They are focusing on practical things in the day-to-day basis as they batter the hell out of Ukraine. You know what I mean? Although, I guess you know they're eating each other. You saw that, didn't you?
No. The Russians are cannibalizing each other now?
Yeah, I know. Let's see. Russian eating each other. You're going to love this. Okay. You're going to love this. Now, this is what the West can do. This is what we can do. Where is it? Here we go. Starving Russian soldiers recorded plotting to eat each other, eat fellow troops. Starving Russian soldiers are cutting up and eating fellow troops amid ration shortage. An internet-accepted radio message appears to show. Ukraine's military intelligence farce, the GRU, released audio they claim shows Russian servicemen in Zaporizhia preparing to eat their younger henchmen. An intercept, which has not been independently verified, recorded a Russian saying, "We'll eat each other. It's all left up here. We're already looking for someone younger. I've sharpened my knives." You know, they're more tender. The young soldiers, you don't want an old soldier. They wouldn't want to eat you or I, Jim. I mean, come on, we're kind of tough. Nice, crispy young soldier. You fillet him, you cook him over an open flame. Exactly. That's what the West can do. That's all we can do is write articles that the Russians are eating each other.
They're eating each other, yeah. I know. Look, this is an inexorable advance that the Russians are making, and they will be able to outlive any Ukrainian attacks on their oil refineries, and they'll be able to deliver 10 times the destruction of Ukraine infrastructure. This is going to happen, and you know, it's going to be a hard winter for Ukraine, and things are going to start collapsing, I think. But it's a dangerous situation. Again, who accepts this? Who accepts the loss? Who accepts the defeat? And I just don't know. I mean, we're getting to a point where that's going to be undeniable and imminent. And what are the Americans going to do? And what can they do? I don't know. Because, you know, as I said, the problem for the United States is, and Europe, is to get Ukraine to accept anything less than Ukrainian victory. They're going to have to regime change Kiev. They're going to have to get rid of the Nazis in Kiev.
They can eat them. So they can eat them. Exactly. That's a big thing right now.
Everybody's got this problem that, you know, the West has the problem that they got in bed with this wild card of fascists in Ukraine, and they can't get out of that bed. You know, they might want to have, some kind of, less than victorious victory for the less victorious ending for either Ukraine or Russia. But the fascists in Ukraine aren't going to accept that either. So the Russians won't accept it, and they won't accept it. So the West is going to have to regime change Kiev if they want to accept anything less than the defeat of Russia. And Russia is going to have to do regime change Kiev if they want to really get a stable, neutral Ukraine that accepts the loss of the four oblasts. And it's a tough situation, and they're going to have to fight their way to Kiev. I mean, at some point they will, I think, the Russians. And they're playing this game too. This is a special military operation. It's not a full-on war. Well, okay. At some point you're probably going to have to go to Kiev. I don't know.
Oh, I mean, so. Well, think about it. When they get to Sumy region, that's a straight road.
That's what Zelensky's worried about with that now. Yeah. So
the Russians. Here's the bottom line.
And what's the West going to be response there? You see, that's where the Europeans and look, they're attacking Kiev. We got to move. We got to come in.
And what can they come up in with? They don't have to. They can't put together 2,000 solters.
Let's not forget a little bit of a tactical nuke to keep them away from Kiev. That's what the answer's got to be.
It won't bother anybody. The Russians won't mind a little tactical nuke.
Oh, yes, they will. And they'll respond. They'll respond.
That's
they'll respond big ass. And that's
getting, but I don't think it's so. You know what's interesting too? Well, let's do this. Europe. We've done a half hour or more on Europe. We got to talk about Zionism.
Oh God.
But what's interesting is, as horrible as Zionism is, it's tearing apart the fabric of an already broken political system in the U.S. The Democrats, I don't know what the hell's going on with them. What a screwed up joint. The Republicans now, man, they're fighting it out. Yep. More and more is coming. This Erica Kirk stuff, the more I see it, it kind of freaks me out. And the TPUSA, this is crazy. It is like maybe they did a hit or something, but they were very sloppy. Anyway, your thoughts on this whole Zionism thing and how it's kind of coming unglued in a way as it cracks that out. Barry White, an incompetent idiot in charge of CBS.
Look, 100%, as I said 1,000 times, there's nothing more important for me as a Marxist, leftist, socialist in the United States than ending American support for Israel. And it's the thing that will do away with Zionism, that will be the Achilles heel of Zionism is that they need American patronage. Now, that's not going to happen very fast. But I want to stress that what is actually going on in Gaza is so horrible, still so horrible, so vicious, and the Israelis are winning. They've occupied more than half of Gaza. They are killing at will people in the other half. Of course, people in the half they'll kill at will. They've destroyed every building in the area in the Gaza Strip. They have taken over parts of Syria and Lebanon, and they are digging in. They are not giving up any of these things until they are defeated militarily and forced to leave Gaza and Syria and Lebanon. So the crisis that Zionism is facing with its support in the United States and the world, but the United States particularly, because that's the crucial thing, is very real, and it's great. And I support anybody. I support Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, who've said wonderful things about Zionism. They've turned on that. And, the Democratic base, I think, has turned on it, but they're not talking it up as much and as hot as with the fire that Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson are. And we have to promote that and support it. But I don't know to what extent that's going to turn into a difference that's going to save the Palestinian people. The Palestinian people are being destroyed. Lebanon is being destroyed. Syria has been destroyed. Okay. So what's going to stop that from happening? The next election is going to be, there is a turn, and people are going to be challenged, and that it'll be a detriment politically to be a supporter of Zionism on the right and on the left. They're going to be challenged. That's wonderful and it's great. But between now and 2028, the United States political class is not going to turn anti-Zionist. It's going to stay Zionist. The money and the power is still there. So whatever.
More desperate. It's going to get more desperate.
They're going to get more desperate. They're going to cut off the internet. They're going to cut off social media. They're going to censorship. Gavin Newsom passed a law in California for making the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. They're going to start challenging professors and students, and they're going to kick people out of school. They're going to kick professors out of their jobs. They're going to do what they're doing in Britain and in Australia. It's happened. It's happening in Britain and Australia. It's going to happen here. So, we're in a fight about this, and that's great. And it's good that we, for the first time in 70 years, we're in a fight over, again, people challenging not just this or that policy of Israel, but Zionism itself. In principle, this is a terrible thing. It's Jewish supremacism. It's colonialism. It's racism. It is. And we have no business supporting it. It does nothing for the United States. Everybody has to get on that train. But in the meantime, they are militarily winning. They are destroying the Palestinian people. They are destroying Syria. They've destroyed Syria. Syria as a nation state has been destroyed. Lebanon is in the process of being, Lebanon was always a precarious state, but they're in the process of being destroyed. Hezbollah isn't attacking them. They're letting them get away with it. Everybody's letting Israel get away with attacking anybody it wants in Lebanon every day it wants, as many times as it wants. Everybody's allowing Israel to get away with attacking anybody in Gaza that it wants every day that it wants. The UN has supported this ridiculous plan of colonial trusteeship by Trump. It's absolutely absurd. So I want to see this change, and we got to see a change in the United States. But I also want someone has to challenge Israel militarily and say you just can't kill people in Gaza without getting killed yourself. and I'm going to make the mistake of going into attacking Iran. Israel is going to be stupid if they attack Iran. But from their point of view, Iran, they want to get rid of Iran as a threat in the near future. And the only way to do that is that Iran's going to get stronger. They know that. They want to get rid of it now. I think I'll say my position is I think the chances are 70% that Israel will get the United States into a war with Iran. And if they do, that could be, and I hope it is, the destruction of Israel, because that's what should happen from that.
I think it's the destruction of the Western economy.
It's going to be a disaster. And I hope it is the destruction, the absolute end of American support for Israel in the United States politically. But that, let's have it. After Vietnam, nobody wanted to spend another dime on war. It was incredible. And they turned that around. Obama turned that around. All of a sudden, we have the war on terror, turned that around. So I want to see the day when the day after Vietnam, the day after Zionism. What a fools we were to support Zionism. Not another dime for Zionism. War Powers Act that will prevent us from ever sending another soldier or bullet to Israel or Zionism. Let's do something like that. But we're not there yet. And it's going to take a fight. And in the meantime, what's going on the ground is not what was going on in Vietnam, where the Vietnamese were winning. What's going on the ground there. It's not what's going on in Ukraine. What's going on the ground in Lebanon and Gaza and Syria is Israel is winning the war militarily, and they've forced their opponents, Hezbollah, their Palestinian resistance, into a position of essential passivity. We can't afford to attack, and at some point someone's going to have to attack and impose a military defeat on Israel in some way, and that's a very I don't know. I have no idea whether that's going to happen or how it's going to happen, but we can't be kidding ourselves about this. Israel is losing the battle of narrative. It's losing the ideological battle. It's losing the battle of support in the United States. That's a wonderful thing. And it will eventually, I hope, and would eventually, if it continues and succeeds, it will eventually undermine the Israeli and the Zionist project. But that eventually is going to be too late for the Palestinians.
Well, I think the other part of it is this. Everything that I read, all my research tells me that Israel got pummeled by Iran, and they know it. And Israel knows that they can't. Okay, we want to take Iran on again. They know that the U.S. has to attack Iran. They know that, in their opinion, it's got to be the U.S. But Netanyahu is not coming to Trump saying, "Hey, will you give us a hand with Iran?" He's going to Trump say, "You put everything you got in there and take out Iran." Right, which I don't believe Trump's going to do for 1 second. And I don't believe that first of all, let me say this. A lot of you, and people forget this, a lot of U.S. policy is driven by internal politics. A lot of it's driven by, not all of it, but a lot of it's driven by internal politics. Okay. And this is, in fact, the midterms. And I believe that will drive not all politics, but that will be a driver of some politics. And I think the people recognize that's an issue here. And so I think what percentage that has, how much of an effect that will have on the decisions of the executive branch, I don't know. But I don't believe that it won't have any, because my experience with U.S. politics is like everything's internal to some extent. They're just, the rest of the world's like, why are the Americans doing that when such and such is going on? And it's internal crap that they're fighting over. So I think that the Trump people know they're kind of on thin ice, that the Republicans parties was strong when they first started, Trump first came in, but now they're on thin ice going into the middle. I think Trump knows there's about 10 straight impeachments waiting on him. And I think that's a concern. But the other part of it is this, Jim, I think Trump's lost his fastball, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think Trump, I don't think he's real coherent right now.
Yeah.
From what I've seen. When I've seen these rambling, mindless things, he was pretty sharp. Regardless of what you think of Trump, he was sharp. He was funny. His first four, he may not have been a good president, but he was a sharp guy, and he was funny, and he knew how to connect with people, and he knew what to say. Now he just rambles. Craziness.
Yeah. It's unhinged. It's unhinged. But here's the problem. Netanyahu's not coming to talk to Trump. Now, I mean, before Netanyahu talks to Trump, Netanyahu and the Israelis, the entire military intelligence apparatus of Israel, is talking with the entire military intelligence apparatus of the United States, and talking to all of the American politicians, all of them, Democratic and Republican, who support Israel and who are going to say Israel has to be protected. Israel has a right to exist. Israel has to defend itself. We have to defend Israel, okay? And before Netanyahu says a word to Trump, he's going to have behind him 1,000 American politicians who don't give a damn. Donald Trump isn't being reelected. They don't give a damn about whether the Republicans or the Democrats run the country. They don't give a damn about that. That's a game that that's for the public to think that the Democrats or Republicans have any difference. That they don't give a damn. They just want the American military to support, and the American state to support the Israel and the Zionist project. And if Israel is going to go to war with Iran, they're going to get the Americans to go along with them. I don't for a second believe that that they will fail. I don't believe they will fail to do that. I said 70%. I think the chances are at best 30% that if Israel really wants to go with Iran, to go to war with Iran, and is committed to that, it won't get the American political class to go along with it. There'll be maybe 5 people who 10 people, 10%, maybe now 20%, but the power is going to be still there, and it's going to be it's going to require who in the Democratic Party leadership is not going to go along with Israel? Nobody. So this is not this. They don't care about the damn midterms. They don't really care about who's going to be the Democrats or Republicans. Trump is over. He's finished. Whatever he thinks he does, he's finished. Marco Rubio doesn't care about the midterms. Stephen Miller doesn't care about the midterms. They care about getting their policies in, and they're getting their policies. They're getting their policy. And there's no policy that is more important right now still to the ruling elite of the United States than supporting Zionism. They will do everything to the detriment of the American policy anywhere else, rather than give up Israel and give up the Zionist project. So we're still fighting that, and that's why the fight is so important. But that's why I really I think it's true that Donald Trump doesn't particularly want to fight Iran, but Donald Trump can't figure out how to avoid it if he's put into unless he get some stones. I mean, he did once. He did call off an attack on Iran when he was first president, and that was an amazing thing that he did. But since then, he's gotten himself involved in, we destroyed the Iranian nuclear program. No, you didn't. And the Israelis are going to come back and say, no, you didn't. And it's not the nuclear program. And the Israelis now are saying, finally, it's not the nuclear program. It's the missiles. We don't want Iran to be able to attack us. Of course they can. They already do have the power to attack them with missiles. So I don't know what's going to come of it, but I'm not satisfied. I don't think that because I think Trump may not want to do it, it won't happen, because I don't think he's entirely in control for all, including the reason you just said. I think he's a little bit out of it now. I don't think he's entirely in control of what he's going to do and what he wants to do. I don't think he knows what he wants to do. And I think he's amenable to have other people tell him what he wants to do.
Last thing, Epstein files. What's interesting, Jim, is that, and I've heard a lot of discussions about it. I think the stupidest stuff is, Trump's picture is in there. No, Clinton's picture is in there. This silly partisanship, which is what they want to argue. They put people, it's interesting. The stuff that they released was like, you already knew. You knew Trump's picture was going to be there. You knew Bill Gates' Bill Gates' picture was in there. You knew Clinton's picture. You knew that. So they released that so we could talk about it. But, and I've heard this discussed, Epstein is put forward as just a pervert.
Yeah.
And they're happy with us talking about Epstein as just a pervert because he was a hub.
Yeah.
He was doing technological acquisitions for Israel. He was lobbying for Israel with powerful people, right? I've understood that, what's his name? His boy, Lex Wexner, that guy's money was from the Meyer Lansky and Bugsy Siegel, Los Angeles, criminal gang. That basically he was involved in a lot of illegal money laundering from Jewish mafia. Might I add something? People forget this. Meyer Lansky and the people that started the whole mafia thing in the Jewish mafia in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And where are the Adelsons from again?
Yeah.
And what do they own? Casinos.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that is the modern day expression that, like, the Meyer Lansky and the Jewish mafias that started all of this money, theft and mafia and these criminal organizations in Las Vegas. That didn't just go. They didn't just say, well, Meyer Lansky's dead now. We'll close this down.
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
That the Adelsons now, in my humble opinion, are kind of that thing kept going, and they're the ones who are handling that's you. If you follow the family tree on down, it's going to be Bugsy Siegel, Meyer Lansky running around there somewhere. But at any rate, Exactly. Somebody said he wasn't just a honeypot, he was a money pot. And I think they'd rather us talk about it than talk about the financial part of him.
Yes.
What was it? Jamie Dimon, and was it Citibank that had to pay $290 million to some of these girls because they were handling money for Epstein, and they never answered the questions about how much or what they were handling.
Yeah. No, this is exactly right. You know, it's Gossip Girl stuff, which is fine. You know, and he was a sleazebag, and he ran a brothel. He ran a kind of ongoing prostitution ring. He and Ghislaine Maxwell, and she was, you know, the daughter of one of the Mossad's most powerful agents in the world, and I think she was the madam of that operation. And it was a nasty operation of prostitution with young women and girls, but it was an intelligence operation. It was a financial operation. Epstein was, the money he got, where did he get it from? He got it from Wexner, and he got it from who got it from the Zionist apparatus of the world. And they poured money into Epstein, and Epstein became, his job was to be a philanthropist, to give away money, to make friends, to bring thousands and thousands of people around him on the basis of, I'm going to give your university, I'm going to give your foundation $1 million, and so that people would be, he get 10,000 people around him, 500 of which, 1,000 of which were important politicians who he got involved with the girls and got involved with getting videotaped and recorded when they were with their liaisons with the girls. And that was a huge operation that was on behalf of the Mossad and in cooperation with the CIA, certainly, but this was a foreign intelligence operation in the United States. This is the main thing about it. Absolutely. We gotta, it's one of, there have been this is, as I said before, I think we were talking before about, this is like the heterosexual versions of, there were homosexual versions of it before with the Franklin scandal. And these are operations that are designed to create, they're honeypot operations, but it's not the honey that's important, it's the pot. I mean, what are they honeypotting for? They're getting people trapped on behalf of political power. They're blackmailing people, creating situations which they can use to exert pressure on politicians and get policy changed. So that's not being talked about at all, really, and it's much easier and much more kind of sensationalistic to kind of focus on the sexual aspects of it, which are gross enough. And but that, and again, this is one of the things they've lost. This is decadence. This is ruling class decadence. Okay, the socialist movement of the 19th, 20th century, where they also were the ruling class decadent. The ruling class can do anything it wants. It breaks all the moral taboos that it claims to uphold, and that's because they feel they can get away with everything, and that's the case. And what this demonstrates is that this is ruling class decadence. Ruling class thinks they're above it all. They're above all the rules. They can get away with anything, including sex with young girls, etc., and underage sex, blah, 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 and run a prostitution ring and be part of and have brothels all over. That's the ruling class brothel. So that's one thing it proves. But the other thing it proves is that there was a foreign intelligence operation that was able to kind of get its tentacles through the sexual stuff throughout the American elite, the American financial elite, the American political elite, the American academic elite, Larry Summers, etc. So that was a powerful hub it was an intelligence hub, as you say. And I want to hear more about that. And that, I'm afraid we're not going to hear much about it at all.
Yeah, if you start looking, and this is just in mainstream, I'm putting some things up. I said Citibank, it was JP Morgan. Inside JP Morgan's $290 million sex trafficking settlement, what it means for Jeffrey Epstein survivors. What people don't understand about our banking system, the Western banking system, if you recall, HSBC got in trouble. Why? Because they were laundering hundreds of billions of dollars for the drug cartels in South America and these other cartels in Eastern Europe, if you remember that. And what did they do? They went out and hired James Comey, James Comey helped to negotiate a settlement for him, and they got caught next year doing the exact same thing. Everybody knows who knows anything about HSBC. In fact, there was a documentary made about them, right? That it's a big money laundering operation. Well, the same is for JP Morgan, Citibank, all of these places. I've heard it said as much as 30% of these banks are involved in drug money. There was the bank, what was it? Republican National Bank. That was that guy. I can't think of his name. He worked with Bill Browder, but he was the guy. That was the money. This guy, who died in mysterious circumstances, of course, was found. I mean, his bank financed the Iran-Contra thing. It was a CIA Black Ops bank. And listen to this. When the guys who were caught breaking in Watergate, they had, each of them had like $6,000 cash on them in sequential bills, right? That had been, it was like straight from the Treasury. And when they checked it, it all went back to that CIA Black Ops bank. So basically, but anybody who knows anything about Nixon knows that was a CIA Black operation. You know, that they took Nixon out. I think it was about the China stuff that pissed people off. Who knows why, but it's obvious they took Nixon out. At any rate. Well, okay. Well, thanks a lot, Jim. Certainly appreciate it. That's an hour, and we've covered a lot of stuff. I think for the end of the year, by the end of the year, we fixed everything, don't you?
I can't believe we're going into another year and people haven't listened to us and solved all the problems of the world.
Well, good thing they haven't, because they'd have rubbed us out, because we're pointing fingers in areas that maybe they shouldn't be pointed. Do you have anything on the Trump-Zelensky meeting before we go? They meet tomorrow.
Oh, it's going to be a joke. You know, I think Trump is not going to like him.
Televised. It's televised.
The whole thing is going to be televised. It's going to be a joke. What can I say? Nothing's going to come out of it. It might be fun to watch.
It may be because, you know, Trump's a showman. He loves. The fact that it's televised, if it wasn't televised, they may be skinning and grinning in the back room. But it's televised. Trump has got to make a show. I think that in the show, you know, Trump, I'm on TV. I got to show everybody that I'm the tough guy. I think he might like bring the hammer down on Zelensky and argue at him and shake
call him piggy. Call him a little piggy.
You're a little piggy too, you little swine. I think, that the fact that it's televised probably means Trump is he's got to like show off to MAGA that he's the tough guy. He already came out by saying, well, they said, what do you think about Zelensky? He's got a 20-point plan. And Trump said, he ain't got nothing until I sign off on it.
Exactly.
Which is the truth. But we will see. He's going to put on a show. That's for sure. So that's going to be worth watching. It may be like, you know, what is it? Hulk Hogan. Let me tell you something, brother. I'll squeeze his little neck.
Well, Trump did jump on Vince McMahon at the WWE, right? He did that. He'll do the same thing with Zelensky, probably.
Maybe he'll take a chair, a folding chair. Don't beat him. He's beating him over the head with a folding chair, and they're pulling him apart. So let's hope for something like that. All right, thanks a lot, everybody. Go to Jim Kavanaugh, follow his Substack, and also what is your
the polemicist on X, the polemicist _. Buy me a coffee, subscribe to my Substack, free or paid, and sign up.
There we go. You got to keep up with Dr. Jim, because he really knows what's happening, and he'll keep you. And if you've got pent up rage, he's the guy that's going to allow you to express it vicariously. Thanks a lot, everybody. You see everything going by. If you can afford to, certainly donate. I got my P.O. box there if you want to mail. The most important thing you can do is share this on all your social media platforms.